Hi, teacher. My name is Sofia Seketa. I attended this class in the year 2020, last year, and this is my presentation, my video presentation for the final exam for prácticas discursivas de la comunicación oral 2. I'm going to start sharing my screen right now. Okay. So the article that I have chosen is from the BBC News, and it's called, the title is The Father, Why Olivia Colman's New Film Will Leave You Disorientated. And my summary is this one. The Father is an upcoming movie based on a play by the same writer and director, Florian Zeller, in which the topic of dementia in elderly people is presented flawlessly. The film has been acclaimed by the critic due to Olivia Colman and Anthony Hopkins' performances as a loving daughter and his sick father, as well as the accurate and yet purposely confusing depiction of the illness from a personal perspective where the viewer can feel like the character. And here is my analysis for the article. The 5 words I have chosen are these ones. Terror is a 2-syllable sound, and usually the tendency is to be stressed on the first syllable. There are many words like this and also many exceptions like this. In this case, terror is the rule, and an exception for it could be the word police. Terror, police. Police is accented on the second syllable. Then the word changes is a 2-syllable noun, which can be used as both noun and verb. The tendency is always, the tendency is that the first syllable is stressed when it is used as a noun. But when it is used as a verb, the stress is always on the second syllable, or at least that is the tendency. The thing is that I have chosen an exception. Changes sounds the same, used both as a noun and as a verb. It has the stress on the same syllable, on the first one. Then we got background, which is a compound noun. The tendency also is to be accented or stressed on the first syllable, the first part of the word. In this case, it would be background. Then we got copy and paste, which is a compound adjective. And the tendency is that it depends according to the syntactic position. In this case, it might be copy and paste. It is stressed on the first syllable and then the last syllable to maintain a balance. And this balance is where it sounds English. And lastly, we got a polysyllabic word, which is fragility. And the tendency is that the stress can be in the first, the second, the third, and even sometimes the fourth syllable, with also sometimes a secondary stress also for word balance. In this case, the stress is on the second syllable, fragility. And then we are going to pass to the analysis of tonicity and tonality within the sentences I have chosen. The first sentence is, reviews of the film adaptation, which first premiered at Sundance last year, prior to the pandemic, were positive. I have divided the IPs in this sentence with the punctuation rules. Wherever a comma is, there is a pause. So the first IP ends up in the first comma, reviews of the film adaptation. This IP, this first IP, is a narrow focus. The nucleus is on the word film and the onset is on the word reviews. because reviews is the new information that we're going to pay attention to. We left outside the content word adaptation because it's not new information. We already know from the article that it is an adaptation from a play. So this is not new information in this IP. So it stops in film, which is the last content word, the last lexical item, following obviously this rule. And it is obviously narrow focus because we are left in outside the focus domain, the word adaptation, which is a content word. For the second IP, which first premiered at Sundance last year, I set the nucleus at the word Sundance and the onset on the word first, because this is the information that is given us. There are two words last year, which are content words and are left outside the focus domain because of the same reasons for this first IP. This is not new information that it is important. The important thing is that it was first premiered at this festival, not other ones. And that's why it is a contrastive narrow focus in an implicit way. It's comparing it with other festivals that haven't been the first. This one is. Then we got the third IP, which is prior to the pandemic. And here I set the nucleus on pandemic and the onset on prior to the pandemic. As all the content words are within the focus domain, it is a broad focus. And lastly, well, it is because all the information is important. It is prior to the pandemic. Was before the pandemic. So all the information is relevant. And for the last IP, it's were positive. Here I set the nucleus on the word positive. And as the word were, it's used in its weak form. It doesn't matter if it's left outside the focus domain. So all the content words are within the focus domain in this case. And it is the only word positive. So it is broad focus. According to the tones, to the intonation, in the first IP, it is a falling tone. It is a falling intonation because it is a neutral tone. It is presenting what it's going to be the rest of the information. Reviews of the film adaptation. Then for the second IP, which first premiered at Sundance last year, it has a rising tone because it is a dependent clause and it's giving us incomplete information. We are not done yet. And the third IP has the same connotation. It is a rising intonation because it's also a dependent clause and it hasn't ended the sentence there. So it has a rising tones too, prior to the pandemic. And lastly, it is where positive, where the information it is fully complete, and it is a falling tone. It ends there. Were positive. For the second sentence, for those who can stomach it, it'll stay with you for longer than you might like, concluded The Guardian's Benjamin Lee. I separated or divided this sentence, the IPs of the sentence, within the same punctuation rule. Wherever a comma is, there is a pause, and so there will be an IP. For those who can stomach it, is the first one. All the content words are within the focus domain, which start in the word who can stomach it. and it ends in stomach. It is stomach, the nucleus, because it is the last lexical word. In this case, who, it is used in the strong form. So it is considered, a content word. It is used with emphasis for those who can stomach it, for those people who can really pass through it. It's making an emphasis there. So the word becomes a content word because of this emphasis. So they're all in broad focus. They're all within the focus domain. Then for the second IP, I'll stay with you. It happens the same thing. You, it's not a content word, but it is on its strong form. So it can be considered as the nucleus of this IP. And the onset, it starts in the word stay. It'll stay with you. So as all the important and content lexical words are inside the focus domain, it is a broad focus. For the third IP, we have the word like, which is a strong verb, is the main verb of this IP. So it is the nucleus in here, and it follows the last lexical item rule. So it is the nucleus. And the onset, I set it in longer because that's the relevant information in this IP. The sensation or the feeling that he's talking about, it lasts longer than you might like. All the other words are function words, so these were the strong ones, the content words that were relevant for this IP. As they are all, as I said before, relevant, it is a broad focus. And for the last IP, concluded the Guardian's Benjamin Lee, it's all in broad focus because, well, firstly, the nucleus is on the noun, on the surname of the critic, Benjamin Lee, and it is, the word concluded, the verb concluded, well, it is a reporting verb, but it's not said or told. It has more weight in the IP, so I set it up as an onset. I think it is important, it's relevant. So concluded the Guardian's Benjamin Lee. As all the words, all the content words are within the focus domain, this is a broad focus as well. For the intonation, in the first IP, it is a rising tone. For those who can stomach it, it is a dependent clause and it doesn't finish there, the whole information. It ends with, it'll stay with you. It falls there in the second IP. It'll stay with you. In the third IP, it is a rising tone again, because it's like new information that's going to be relevant for longer than you might like. And then the falling tone in the fourth IP concluded the Guardian's Benjamin Lee, because it closes the sentence and the information. It closes what it was being reported. And then we have the third sentence, which is, Anthony is losing more than his memory. He's losing himself. As well, I divided it with the punctuation rule. I don't have a comma, I have a hyphen, but it determines a pause as well. And then we got two IPs. On the first one, it is a narrow focus because the word Anthony is outside the focus domain. It is a content word, a noun, a name, and it is outside the focus domain because we already know from the article that we were talking about him. So the important thing is that he's losing more than his memory. He's losing more than his memory. He's not that important in this IP. The important thing is that he's losing more than his memory. So I set the nucleus on the word memory, which is the last lexical item. And I place the onset on the word losing, on the verb losing, because that is what it's giving us the information for what is happening to Anthony's memory. He's losing it. And well, it is important. I think the onset, the focus domain starts there. And for the second IP, he's losing himself. It is also a narrow focus. The word himself, it is a pronoun, but it's used with emphasis. So I think it can be the nucleus from this IP. And I think the onset, it starts also in losing because it is an emphatic narrow focus. It's also comparing to what he's losing. He's losing more than his memory, it says the first IP, but then we got he's losing himself, and it's making emphasis on how big and important it is what he's losing, and it's an exaggeration. It's losing himself. You cannot literally lose yourself, but in this case, it's using it as if you could. So for me, it's an emphatic narrow focus. And well, it is narrow because the verb it's left outside the focus domain. We already know because, this verb follows the verb to be on the first IP, which is also outside the focus domain. And for the intonation in these two IPs, we got that the first one is a full rise. It starts neutral, like with Anthony, and it. No, I'm sorry. It starts neutral with Anthony. It's like Anthony is losing more than his memory, and more information is coming that what he's losing. So it is a rising tone. And then for the second IP, it is a falling tone. He's losing himself. That's the end of the sentence and the gravity of it. So it completes the information. Well, okay, teacher, I think that's it. I hope you're right. And this is going to be the end of my video. Bye-bye. It's not going to be better than that.